listen, I mean, I recognize that I'm an investor in a property tax protest company, and in full disclosure, you can do this on your own. So if nothing else, yes, I'm here to educate you. And like I started off the call, I'm passionate about helping people. And regardless of what you do, all I want you to do is protest your taxes. That's the main thing here. Because again, the appraised value from the county can be entirely different about what somebody will pay for it. I may come along, Bill, and say that I absolutely have fallen in love with your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet that you've never updated for 40 years, but I love that piece of property and I'm willing to pay you $5 million for it. And it's worth $1 million. It's never about what somebody's willing to pay for it. It's about what the appraised value is. And you shouldn't be taxed on what it necessarily, somebody's just willing to pay for it on. It should be about the true value.
Hey, everybody. This is Bill Cafferetta, your host of the Sold on Drip podcast. And on this week's episode, we're going to dive into something really important that we've all been talking about, and it's property tax assessments. I know they came out recently and we all nearly fell off our chair. So I wanted to get as much information out to you as possible to make sure that we are educated and can make the right decisions here on how to protest, when to protest, and make sure we get these taxes down. So our episode this week is going to be Chase McRoberts. He's the team leader for Keller Williams Southwest Market Center here in Austin. He is a property tax expert and an investor in a company called Home Tax Shield. They're actually based here. Their CEO lives in Driftwood, so there's a Dripping Springs connection. What we did forget in the episode was to talk about the deadline. You have until May 15th in order to file this protest. We want to make sure that's done before May 15th. And we touch on a lot of subjects that are really important right now. We start basic with what are property taxes and how are they calculated? Should we protest? Should we do it every year? Why did these valuations jump up so high when the real estate market has actually cooled off and fallen back a little bit with market values? We talk about the Homestead Exemption and the importance of that and how that can save you a 10% cap each year. I'll also get into at the end about if you have not filed your Homestead Exemption and you've lived in the home already and it's been up to 2 years, we can get that filed back for you. I'm happy to help. You can reach out if you need to help getting that Homestead Exemption. Please reach out and I'll help. We dive more into what this whole process looks like, how you can do it yourself, what if you need to use a company, and kind of talk about his service with Home Tax Shield and why they're superior from other companies to use to get this done. So we hope that this episode is packed with knowledge. We know it is. We know you're going to use it to help. And if there's anything I can do, please reach out to myself or to Chase, and we will make sure that we get you well taken care of. So enjoy the episode and reach out with any questions. Thanks.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast, your ultimate destination for all things Dripping Springs. I am your host, Bill Cafferetta, and we are here to celebrate what makes this town the best place to live in the Texas Hill Country. It's amazing people. Join us as we sit down with local residents and business owners to hear their stories, learn why they love this community, and are proud to call it home. We will be spotlighting their businesses, find out why they choose to serve the people of Dripping Springs, and dive into the local events that bring our community together. Our finger is always on the pulse, and we will be keeping you informed about how our rapid growth and development is impacting our schools, resources, and the local real estate market. Whether you're a lifelong resident or you have just discovered Dripping Springs, you will soon know why we are all sold on drip. Thanks for joining and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast. I'm your host, Bill Cafferetta, and my guest today is Chase McRoberts, who is the team leader for the Keller Williams Southwest Market Center here in Austin. And he is also an investor in Home Tax Shield. Now, we're going to pivot just a bit on today's episode. Typically, we're interviewing Dripping Springs residents and business owners. Chase fits that bill a little bit, but we've all been kind of shocked by our property tax values in the last week or so as they've come out. So it's really important for us to understand them thoroughly. And Chase is an expert in this. So we wanted to bring him on to talk us through the process and let us know what we can do to protest these taxes and save us some money. So Chase, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know, you're here, you're local to Austin, maybe not exactly in Dripping Springs, but I know the CEO of of Home Tax Shield lives here in Driftwood, so there is a Dripping Springs connection. So tell us a little bit about Chase as a person and how this kind of backs into us saving money on our taxes.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. I mean, I've just been so passionate about the real estate business as I've been in it for the last 15 years. And even prior to that, growing up in the business, with my dad being in development and real estate, commercial and residentially. And then I kind of happened into it and landed in real estate. And so I've just always been passionate about helping people. And so an opportunity arose about 4, maybe 5 years ago as it related to property taxes. And I said, you know what? I've been through this already myself, right? I've protested my taxes every year. And so I decided that I really wanted to have more of an active role in helping people. And that's how I got involved with Home Tax Shield. And we have a small team. It's we're small but mighty is what I say. And we're able to really leverage technology to do this. And so it's a passion of mine is to help people. And like you mentioned, I am also the team leader here at KW Austin Southwest. And so I'm passionate about helping agents get into production, get into real estate, and also passionate about helping the agents that we currently work with here at the Market Center, like yourself, Bill, to just be more productive in their business too. So I love real estate.
Well, that's no small job in itself. I think the Market Center just took home a little bit of hardware at our recent convention. What was that all about?
Tell me what you're referring to.
Oh, with the Southwest office winning the awards for.
Oh yeah. Hardware. I gotcha.
Yeah.
We won top in gross commission income. So that was how did that amazing out of all of KW, by the way. And so that was really incredible. So proud of our team and it's all about the agents here. I mean, you know that, Bill. It's all about, I don't do those numbers. Nobody here singularly does those numbers. It's a collective group of all of the agents doing that. And so incredible.
It's an incredible company to be a part of. Wouldn't want to do it anywhere else. And we really do enjoy your leadership and what you guys provide us here so that we can provide our clients with the best experience possible. And that's why I wanted to have you on to talk about this kind of elephant in the room that we're all seeing now with property taxes. So I want to start basic and make sure we have a good level of understanding of where this comes from. So first and foremost, not everybody is from Texas, so not everybody understands how this works and the way property taxes are assessed or where they come from or how and why they go up every year. So let's start real basic. What are property taxes here? And we'll use Hays County as the example today. So property taxes, Hays County, Texas, what are they and how are they calculated?
Well, yeah, property taxes in general, it's an assessment of your appraised value of your home. And since we don't have income tax in the state of Texas, the state just has to run their budget some way, right? And it's done off of property tax valuations. And so with that being the case, there's a certain percentage that you are charged for different things that you're assessed on your property. This is the school district, the medical districts, the just overall taxes as a whole. Everywhere is a little bit different. So you want to look at your respective bill and make sure that you understand what that number is. The average in the state of Texas is 2.2%. But I know in other areas it's lower, in other areas it's higher for that matter on what your percentage of your assessed value you're going to pay taxes on every year. In Texas, we have the ability to reassess the valuation bill. And that's really the thing that is different in Texas versus some other states that do have an income tax. And granted, we have a sales tax, but we don't have an income tax. And so property tax helps the state run many of the things that they have to do.
And that percentage varies not only county to county, town to town, but community to community. And you could be in one community and directly across the street, their tax could be a full percentage higher. And we've seen that here in Dripping Springs. I know when I moved from Calaterra to Big Sky Ranch, it was about a 1% difference in the taxes. And my bigger home was actually less money per month when we factored everything in because of those lower taxes, which helped us out on that monthly payment.
That is 100% true. Yep.
Now, we understand that the taxes are necessary and we can't avoid them, and that they are a valuation on the home. But one of the questions, and I can use my home as the example, is the rapid increase in these numbers and the fact that they've gone up so high. And we're in a situation right now where the real estate market has cooled off from the explosion of 2020 and 2021, and the values are, falling. They fell down a little bit, maybe 10% or so down in value from where they were, and they're kind of holding right now. But we haven't increased values this year yet. Our property tax valuations from the county have gone up significantly. They've gone up, I think the average was something like 14%. Mine went up 24%. And that's where I think the everyday consumer is trying to wrap their head around that rapid increase when their home value, the market value of what you could sell the home for, has actually decreased. How do they come up with that?
Yeah, I mean, they're just reassessing your property and trying to figure out exactly what they feel like your appraised value is. Now, with that all being said, certainly is there a reassessment every year? There certainly is. I was trying to find out exactly what Hays County had done, because I know I have the numbers here, and I'll have to look at that and try to find it before the end of our call. However, I'll tell you this, that the appraised value, they can continue to, if you have a homestead, they can increase that 10% every year, or your taxation valuation, as far as what they're going to actually tax you on every year, can be raised 10%. The valuation of your property, so the assessed value of your property, that can be whatever they want it to be. So we'll just take a easy example here. Maybe they your valuation of your home is 800,000, but maybe because you've lived in your home a few years and you bought it before the last growth of 21%, or annually, we had about 21% growth in 2020. 2020, 2021, and 2022 is an average. That was just an average, Bill. With that being said, maybe you bought this property in 2018. Maybe you bought it for 500,000. So every year you've been going up the 10%, but we'll say that property is, the overall appraised value is $1 million or 800,000, whatever you want to say it is. What's going to happen is they're going to do 10% every year, Bill, until they get to whatever that appraised value is that they've claimed. So here's the thing, even if you think your taxable value is fair today, it's not all about what you're paying today. It's about what you may pay tomorrow. And so protesting your taxes is yes, about today, but it may not be about lowering what you spend today as much as it is about how much you spend tomorrow. So like I said, even if we can't lower your amount today that you're going to pay in taxable amount, we can hopefully lower the valuation of where they have it valued, so that way the 10%, they're going to continue to get to that number. But if we can lower that from 800 to 700, then we know that that's where you're starting next year for them to potentially look at raising it again. Because like you said, some of the assessed values have gone down, and that's based off of sales data. And that's not the only argument in this conversation. The argument also is, what about the home across the street from you, Bill, that never sold, right? So we often look across this conversation and say, well, the sales have cooled off. Yes, they have. But what about the neighbor across from you that is paying half as much as you are because they bought their house 10 years ago and that house hasn't sold in 10 years? And that's the conversation, is about being equitable and really having fair taxable value on a property.
We have a great example of that in my neighborhood here, because I protest every single year. Yep. And I believe the stat is only 14% of people actually protest. 86% do not protest.
That's
so
right.
There are a ton of homes that are valued at a higher amount where people can save money simply from filling out the form. Last year, I filled out the form and gave very little data, was waiting for my hearing. And before I even got the hearing, I had a settlement sent to me, and it took about $80,000 off of my value. Went from 710 down to 630. I thought that was quite fair. Didn't want to go down and wait a month to go in front of the committee to try to save another 10 or 20,000. I took it. It was at 630. A year later, we go from 630 to 779 or 789. It's a huge jump. So I'm going to protest this year. I'm going to be, this is a really important year for me. So I'll likely be working with you and Home Tax Shield to try and get that down as much as we can. But my neighbor, who has the same exact floor plan as me, who did not protest last year, was valued at 904.
There you go.
Same floor plan. Same. They're on a corner lot. So yeah, they do have about a 10 foot wider yard, possibly, give or take, but they go from up to 904. And that's mainly because they didn't protest last year. So where they were valued in the 700s last year, now it jumped to 904. So just by seeing that, it absolutely pays to do it year over year. And that 10% you talked about, what's key about that is, yes, you're only going to cap at 10% with your homestead each year, but you'll just catch up to that number way quicker if you don't protest. Even if it doesn't save you money in 2023 or 2024, it might be 25, 26, 27. You're shelling out more money because you didn't protest along the way.
That's right. And listen, I mean, there's not just properties that have exemptions on them. There's a lot of properties that don't. And so this conversation also encompasses, what about your investor clients, Bill? What about the investors that are listening here? And regardless of if you're in Hayes County or you're in Bexar County and you're in San Antonio, I mean, or you're in Dallas County, or it doesn't matter where you are in Texas, and maybe some of your homeowners that you work with, Bill, maybe they have investments in other areas of the state. And so with that being said, there is no cap on your investment properties. So we have seen that this has really hurt people, especially in the Austin metro area as a whole. I mean, and let's face it, Dripping Springs is in the Austin metro area. And so with that being said, Bill, it's hurt cash flow. It's made it difficult for some people to cash flow any longer. And in some situations, they've had to take other measures to make that investment work for them. I mean,
that includes raising rent.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that said, fighting your property taxes is important on your primary and any investment properties.
The investment properties are really kind of sparking a whole different conversation. Like you said, I mean, I have some investors who I worked with that had homes that they would have liked to sell a year ago, but the numbers didn't make sense. So we held off and we were going to rent them for a year or two, maybe three, but they're now looking at it like, okay, that whole margin is gone with these new evaluations. I either have to raise rents to a point where I don't know if I can get that amount.
That's right.
Or we might need to sell the home because it doesn't make any more sense. We're going to be actually upside down on that payment each month with the rent that's coming in. So it's a decision that's going to have to be made. Maybe it'll increase some inventory on the market. I know we still have a very low inventory in all of the Austin metro, but decisions need to be made, and you can help yourself now as a way to save money later and tomorrow. And another thing that just popped in my head on those investors, these investors that I work with, not all of them are just like full-time investors. I want to invest and buy these properties. They're people who owned a home and needed a bigger home, but then didn't want to sell that home. They kept it as an investment property and didn't think while they were living there, they needed to protest because they were getting their 10%. Well, now that that's an investment property and they lose their homestead a year later, they were capping their taxes in the $450,000, $500K range. Now that home is worth $900,000. That tax bill just doubled by them just trying to do something for themselves and keep an investment property and make a smart financial decision.
Exactly.
And, yes, it also hurts the investor who has 20 properties, but it's the mom and pops who just decided, okay, I can build some wealth through keeping the homes that I moved out of. They're really hurting. So that's another way to really look at that. And then here's a question for you. If I have a home that I've protested every year and I've kept that tax bill down, and I know it triggers a reassessment when you sell the home, but that previous value, because the county is not supposed to have sold data, we're a non-disclosure state. If I sell a home that's one of the better valued homes in the neighborhood for my client, and that valuation was low, does that help the next client as they move in as a way for them to maybe see that as a more marketable home?
It's really fascinating that you asked me this, and this isn't a question that we didn't prepare for prior to the call, but it's interesting. I have have somewhat of an answer for you. We have our first case study going on inside of our organization where somebody out of San Antonio actually has, the seller, by the way, has written this in their real estate contract, Bill, that they were requiring, or the seller is going to protest the taxes with the requirement that when it's transferred and the property closes, that the buyer keeps the coverage. And the reason why is because that actually helps the seller going through the closing, because if they sell after this assessment and the bill is due, potentially they're getting the proration taken out based off of the current taxes. Possibly. It depends on when the house sells, right? And you'd want to talk to your title company and understand all of the logistics there. But I will tell you, I had a situation that came up, and I won't disclose the neighborhood, but I will tell you in Austin, where they went through closing, they did the proration bill, and the buyer ends up protesting the taxes. They got them lowered by a couple $100,000. This is last year. This ends up being a personal friend of mine. And the seller looked it up after the bill was due, found out it had been lowered, contacted the buyer and asked them for part of the refund because the title company had collected too much. Whether or not that is right or that is wrong is not why I'm bringing this up. Why I'm bringing this up is it's an interesting conversation that you pose, because we're in such an inflationary time in regards to property tax that you're seeing some of the conversation change around how even buyers and sellers interact in a real estate conversation and a transaction. So it should be favorable to the new buyer. And I think it could arguably be something that should be talked about, and potentially the protest could be carried through and the buyer taking it on after closing, if in fact it hasn't been completed prior.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And this is just further proof that who you work with matters, and making sure that you're covered and taken care of on all angles, and making sure this goes through and the title companies use the information they have in the moment. But, we've seen that things have changed rapidly. So thank you, Chase. So to kind of recap on one big part of this, one of the questions that I had down here for you was, should we protest and should we do it every year? And that's a resounding yes. Because one, the more people that protest, the more data there is being retrieved, and the better that everyone's odds are that we can get the taxes kind of moved. And that protest, I think the reason people don't do it is they're a little scared of it. It's unknown. They feel like it's a lot of work involved and they're not sure exactly what to do. What does that protest process look like?
Yeah, there's kind of two options here. And listen, I mean, I recognize that I'm an investor in a property tax protest company, and in full disclosure, you can do this on your own. So if nothing else, yes, I'm here to educate you. And like I started off the call, I'm passionate about helping people. And regardless of what you do, all I want you to do is protest your taxes. That's the main thing here. So do it on your own. You're going to be given a notice from the county, file the protest with them if that's what you want to do. But listen, you can hire a company, and there's many of them out there. We're not the only one. We just happen to be one of the leaders in the entire state of Texas, and in large part because we've built a network of referral partners, and we've been very successful in this with both our success rate and how we go about making this just ease of use for homeowners. In our pricing structure, and we'll get into some of that later on down the road. But my point in saying that is that if you want somebody to do it for you, Bill, sign up on your link. I know you're going to post that and have that available. And it'll take you 2 minutes to sign up your property. And we're not going to charge you for whatever we're successful on until we get into October, November anyway. You're going to pay a $15 fee this first year to just sign up and have us protest. Any sequential year will be $30, but the success fee is 30%. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like and how that's calculated in a minute. But all of this data, by the way, that we use is public. So you can go on to the county appraisal district and grab this data if you want, and you can aggregate it and you can figure out how to do the sheets that we've built out. We're doing all this through technology, so we're able to leverage this small team that we have. But at minimum, go out there and do it. And here's what we're doing, just to kind of dive a little bit deeper into how this works and what data we're using, Bill, to go into the county. So if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, it's 1,500 square feet on a 0.3 acre lot. And I'm making all of this up, by the way. But if you have that, it's about comparing all of the properties in a given area that are equitable to that. So meaning they have the same criteria and metrics. So every 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet on a 0.3 acre lot, what are they valued at? So like we mentioned, some of them may not have sold for 30 years. What are they valued at versus what is
when you say valued, you're talking about the county valuation, not their market price.
That's right. Because again, the appraised value from the county can be entirely different about what somebody will pay for it. I may come along, Bill, and say that I absolutely have fallen in love with your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet that you've never updated for 40 years, but I love that piece of property and I'm willing to pay you $5 million for it. And it's worth $1 million. Right. So it's never about what somebody's willing to pay for it. It's about what the appraised value is. And you shouldn't be taxed on what it necessarily somebody's just willing to pay for it on. It should be about the true value. So that's the thing that we've got to be very conscientious about. And here's the other thing. I know a lot of consumers will contact their favorite realtor and say, hey, give me some sales comps. I want to go in there and I want to fight this based off of sales comps. Keep in mind 2 things. For one, we're a non-disclosure state. So immediately when you go and give them the sales comps, you're giving them data they shouldn't have access to at the appraisal district. For 2, you're using data that's inside of a private platform, which is the multiple listing service. The other thing is that sales data in the last few years would have not most of the time helped you. But yet our company's still been successful in these conversations because of the equity argument, like I was just explaining. And it's about not equity as in you bought the home for 400,000, now it's worth $1 million, you have 600,000 in equity. That's not what it's about. It's about equitable properties and things being equal to each other. So just kind of a high level overview of how this process can work and how it can be favorable to the average consumer.
And I want to simplify that process a little bit on what the actual steps look like, because that's a great explanation on what you're doing for your building your case. But it's as simple as starting with filling out the paper and mailing it back to the county. That gets the ball rolling. You can also do it online. You can go through the county appraisal district's website and do it online, or you just simply mail it back. From there, you kind of sit back and wait. And some people get a little impatient in that because they don't understand that there's not the county is not overly staffed, and they get a lot of these protests. So it takes some time, and they'll contact you and they'll set up a hearing date where you'll actually have to physically go down to the county. And there are a couple of exceptions where you can do Zoom still, but those are not as easy as they used to be. And then you would go sit in front of the board. But what we've also seen, especially in the last year or two, is that the county will actually send you a settlement. So they'll offer you, hey, we agree, and this is what we can drop it to. You can accept that, or you can go to your settlement and to your hearing and actually sit in front of the board and present your case. I've personally had success in the last 2 years in 2 neighborhoods by looking at equitable properties, and it wasn't even the home value, but it was actually the land value. And here's a little tip if you want to do this yourself. In my neighborhood, I have basically the same lot as every person, but there are 4 or 5 lots in the neighborhood that are much bigger, about 2 to 3 times the size. And I think there's 4 of them. I looked at those land values and those were the same as mine. So I used that and said, how can that be the same land value if they have 2 times the land? I got a settlement. I did the same thing when I lived in Calaterra, where there was some larger lots in the back of the community. My lot was the regular normal size and actually backed up to Ranch Road 12. And I said, okay, I back up to a main road on the smaller lot. This lot's 3 times the size. That's not equitable. I got a settlement from them. So as simple as that, you can fight these and win your protest. That's worked for me. Doesn't mean it's going to work every time, but that's how I've personally on my properties have been able to win that protest and save myself some money.
And while you're on that vein, let me just share this. If they are to mark in their system that you referenced, you live at 123 Main Street and you reference 456 Elm Street, they will not penalize 456 Elm Street for what you told them. So I think that's really important. If you go and use your neighbor as a comparable, they can't penalize your neighbor.
Yeah, that's because we don't want to be the guy in the neighborhood who's raising everybody else's taxes at the same time.
Exactly. So
I mean,
that's actually written in their standard operating procedures.
Now, I also saw something the other day where somebody was saying you can actually call the county and ask them for what they're using to calculate your tax assessment. Have you seen that to be true, or any of that information that they're giving? Is that something that the county is open and willing to give?
That's not really the side of it that we live on. And yes, I mean, you can certainly do that for sure. And I have known people to do that because we're doing the sheer numbers that we're doing across the entire state. I mean, we walk in with thousands in almost every county we're working. We're in over 40 counties. So any major metro area in the state. And we even opened El Paso this year and the Rio Grande Valley. And we work in the Panhandle. So any major area, Corpus Christi, by the way, down there in Nueces County and surrounding. So just any of those areas. But to answer your question, we go in there ready with all of our grids that we've put together, and they're really ready to just have a conversation around what this looks like for each one of those properties. And so we're not so concerned about what they've necessarily used to value it on, other than we are interested in what we've used, because we know that we're doing this based off of equitable data across the entire area, which is a unique way that is generally used in, you've used it in your neighborhood. And we even go outside of neighborhoods as far as ours are concerned, but it's very common in the commercial space. And the reason why it is common in the commercial space is you may have a commercial building on this corner, but maybe there isn't a commercial building that's similar for a mile away. Mm-hmm. But in real estate and residential real estate, we're used to comparing properties in a neighborhood because there's typically properties inside of a given geographic area. And so kind of thinking further about how you can find equitable data, you have to go a little bit further out and really look outside of maybe even your hyper local area. Because as you know, Bill, I mean, some areas of town, there might be 5 houses in a neighborhood.
Right.
And so it's kind of hard to really get a solid idea of what the value should be unless you go outside.
Especially in Dripping Springs, because yes, you can compare homes within some of these master plan communities and they make sense, but sure, that's part of what makes Dripping Springs so great is these neighborhoods and these other areas are not the same. And even pulling sales comps can be difficult sometimes, let alone looking at what these tax evaluations are. So yes, as agents, we can help you with this, but in some instances you can do it yourself. In some instances, you just don't have time to do it and you're happier to sub this out. And there are instances as well where there's just not a lot to compare it to. And that's where bringing in a professional can really help you to work on these values. So when looking at that, there's no shame in pulling in a professional, in getting somebody to do this for you, because 86% of people don't do anything. So when we look at that, and we look at Home Tax Shield, I guess the question that I have, if I'm looking at this, is what are we looking for in a professional? And then for you guys, like what makes you stand out against these other companies? There's a lot of options. You can use a ton of different options for this, but why would we use Home Tax Shield? What makes you stand out against the rest?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, at the end of the day, people want ease of use. And that's exactly what we are. We make it easy. You go on there, it's going to take you 2 seconds to sign up, really. I mean, under 2 minutes for sure. And then outside of that, it's what we felt was fair is we don't bill you until the actual tax bill is due. And so that's at the end of the year. So that's a unique feature of ours as well. The other thing is if we, and I'm going to use an example here, if your home's worth $500,000 and we lower that valuation to 475, so we lowered it by 25,000, but your homestead exemption is worth 40,000, which is what they are currently worth. So that's 460. We technically, your taxable portion of that is lower than what we lowered it by. In that situation, we charge you nothing other than the initial sign-up fee, which would have been $15 for the first year and $30 for every sequential year after that. If in that same example, we lowered your valuation to from 500 to 450, then you back off the homestead exemption at 40, we lowered you by $10,000 difference, right? We're charging the success fee on $10,000, which is, it's 10,000 times your percentage that you pay in taxes and 30% of that. So if we, it may be very minimal that you end up paying for us to save you money. And then remember, next year, you then start at that valuation for them to raise you again. And so even if you paid us no success in the first example, and we got you to 475, we were successful for you, by the way, and all of our competitors in this market would still charge you on the 25,000. We don't. And at the same time, we have been successful to allow you to start at a lower valuation to begin the process next year. And here's the thing, there's some stats. We've done some case studies here, Bill, too. If you do nothing, you get zero in savings. If you protest one time, you may find that you save a couple $1,000. If you protest over the course of 5 years, we believe that you will save at least about $7,500 in taxes. I know I was talking to somebody last week and they saved $7,000 their first year. Now,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that we are saving a lot of money off the first year, and guess what? That's a vacation for a lot of people. That's a difference in your household income every month. So, and keep in mind, if you have your escrow account collecting for your taxes, I know of a family right now, and this is an extreme example, but theirs went up several $1,000s a month because they're short. So I'm not trying to scare anybody here. I'm trying to be realistic and at the same time let you know that if you're able to save money, you're helping yourself in a lot of different ways.
The zero versus any number is what stood out to me there, because the far majority of people aren't even protesting or thinking about protesting. And then as soon as you do, and then you see any sort of savings, it kind of jumpstarts you to move forward. And that homestead exemption can only save you for so long. Another point to that is homestead exemptions. If you have moved into your home in the last 1 to 2 years, you absolutely need to file that homestead exemption, and the county will actually let you go back 2 years to file it. And that can actually get you that cap. So if you're somebody who has moved in the last 2 years, has not filed a homestead exemption, please reach out to me. I can help you get that filed. I've had success with that here in Hayes County. I know it's been a little bit more difficult in Travis County, but in Hayes County, we can get that, and we can get you your homestead exemption, get that 10% cap, and make sure that your payment is not going up. And like Chase said, sometimes thousands of dollars a month. So I'm going to post some more information about this at soldondrip.com. If you go on there, you'll see it'll be a little tab that says to protest your taxes and learn more about home tax shield. And you can use my link there. That will, for our listeners, get you 50% off. So you'll save $15 this year. Your only commitment is that $15 until there's success. So hopefully we, if nothing else today, have made you understand where these taxes kind of come from, those huge numbers that we're seeing, and that you're not bound to that number. You can protest it and find some success there to get those numbers down and save yourself some money.
I love it. And Bill, I appreciate being on here and being able to share with everybody. And one thing I wanted to share is just how they can reach myself if they have any additional questions. I know you're going to give them all of your information, and also how they can reach our team at Home Tax Shield as well. So I'm Chase at hometaxshield.com if you want to email me. And I know Bill's going to post his link if you want to end up signing up. And then the other thing is, if you go to hometaxshield.com, there's a chat feature. Go in there, chat with our customer service folks. We're available for you. I take chats. Our CEO takes chats. We all take chats as well, across the entire team, just to make sure that we are as helpful as we possibly can, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, I'm glad we pivoted from a typical episode here. This was very informative. I know you have a really busy day, and I'm very thankful that you took some time to speak to our listeners about this. And yeah, we hope that you go ahead and reach out to Chase if you have any questions. Go to soldondrip.com, check out that link. I'm here to answer any questions, especially if you need help with that homestead exemption. I can help you get tied in there. And we really would love to see every single person protest and every single person get those taxes down. Because again, when we talk about properties being equitable, that's only going to help everybody year over year over year if we can all keep them down. So Chase, thanks again. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, my friend. Good.
You've been a great resource, and we hope that this helped you all be a little bit more sold on drip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sold on Drip podcast. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. If you would like to connect, learn more about Dripping Springs, or have any questions regarding Central Texas real estate, you can find me at soldondrip.com or on Instagram at Bill Cafferetta. I hope to see you around town.